The Vila Royal convoy moved across the silver skies of planet E47, a young world filled with tall crystal trees and blue rivers that shone under the twin suns. Among the shining ships was the royal vessel of Princess Lyra, daughter of the High Empress of the Velar Empire. Her soft furred ears twitched as she looked through the glass dome at the strange planet below. The world looked wild and beautiful, untouched by her people's machines. She had heard many stories about the lost species called humans. The archives said they were gone too emotional, too chaotic to survive the cold logic of the galaxy. Lyra had always wondered if that was true. Could a whole species just vanish? Or did they still hide somewhere far from the stars? Her thoughts broke when the ship suddenly shook. Red lights flashed. The pilot shouted that a meteor storm had entered their path. Before anyone could move, bright fireballs slammed into the hull. The ship spun, alarms screamed, and Lyra was thrown from her seat. She hit the floor, the sound of tearing metal echoing in her ears. The royal guards tried to reach her. But the ship was falling. The world outside the windows turned into a blur of green and blue. Then came the crash. When she opened her eyes, the world was quiet. The air was thick and wet. Smoke rose from the broken ship. Pieces of metal lay everywhere, glowing faintly. Her head hurt, and her left arm bled where a shard of glass had cut her. Around her, no one answered her calls. The guards, the pilot, even her royal aide gone. Lyra stumbled out of the wreck. Rain began to fall, heavy and cold. The jungle around her glowed faintly under the storm, strange plants breathing out light like lanterns. She tried to reach the ship's communicator, but it was destroyed. She was alone on a planet she barely knew. The storm grew worse. The wind howled through the trees. She tried to start a fire with her survival kit, but the rain put it out again and again. Her golden royal armor grew heavy, and her legs felt weak. Hours passed before she saw something strange in the distance, a faint orange flicker between the trees. A light dot at first. It was the wreck burning. But this light moved softly, steady, like a fire made by hand. She forced her tired body to move toward it. Her boots sank in mud. Branches scraped her arms. She almost gave up when she reached a small clearing and saw it a cabin, made of metal pieces and wood, standing quietly under the rain. Smoke rose from a small chimney. Lyra blinked in disbelief. Someone lived here, she approached carefully. The door was made of old metal sheets, and there was a faint humming sound inside like a power generator. She knocked weakly. When there was no answer, she knocked again. The door opened suddenly. A man stood there. His face was partly hidden by a short beard. His clothes were worn, patched with care. His eyes were sharp and calm, the eyes of someone who had seen many lonely days. He looked at her in silence. Lyra stepped back, unsure. I need help, she said softly. Her translator implant turned her alien words into his tongue. He studied her for a moment, then stepped aside. Come in, he said in a quiet, deep voice. Inside, the cabin was warm. A fire burned in a small stone pit. The air smelled of wood smoke and metal. The man handed her a rough blanket and motioned for her to sit near the fire. She hesitated. No Vila Royal had ever accepted help from a stranger, but the warmth felt too good to refuse. He said nothing for a long time, only brought her a cup of hot water. His cabin was filled with simple tools, old machines, metal scraps, a small lamp powered by solar cells. Finally, he spoke. You're not from here, Lyra nodded weakly. My ship crashed. I lost my people. He studied her glowing eyes, her fox-like ears, and her elegant armor. You're Velor, he said after a pause. She stared at him. You know of my kind? He nodded once. I've seen your ships pass in the skies. You colonize planets. Take what you need. His voice was calm, but there was no fear in its homely truth. Lyra felt uneasy. Then who are you? She asked softly. He poked the fire with a stick. Name's Elias Trent. I'm human. Lyra froze. The word hit her like thunder. That's not possible, she whispered. Humans are gone, extinct. He gave a small, tired smile. Seems the archives got that wrong. For a long moment, The only sound was the crackling fire and the rain outside. Lyra looked at him with wide eyes. A real, human alive, standing before her. The lost species her people had written off as history. He seemed calm, not proud, not angry, just quietly alive. When he saw her bleeding arm, he reached for a metal box. "Let me see that," he said. She hesitated, then allowed him. His hands were rough but careful. He cleaned the wound and wrapped it with clean cloth. "Why help me?" she asked, confused. "You don't even know me." He looked at her with a half-smile. "You knocked on my door in the middle of a storm. Seemed like the right thing to do." His words were simple, but they carried warmth that touched her heart. Her people helped others only by law or duty. This man helped without reason. That night, she couldn't sleep. The sound of rain mixed with the gentle hum of the generator. Elias worked at his table, fixing a broken metal tool. His hands moved with steady rhythm, his face calm and focused. "Why are you here, alone?" she asked quietly. He didn't look up. "Because the galaxy got tired of humans. Said we were too dangerous, too emotional. Maybe they were right. But I couldn't live in their cold cities anymore. I came here when the last ship left." "You stayed behind?" she said, shocked. He nodded. Someone had to keep a light burning. Something about those words stayed with her. She'd always believed that strength came from control, logic, and discipline. Yet this lonely human seemed to hold a different kind of strength, the kind that came from heart. From hope, the next morning Lyra stepped outside. The storm had cleared. The forest looked bright, filled with birds that shimmered like glass. Elias joined her, carrying a mug of coffee. He offered it to her. She took it awkwardly, unsure what to say. "You don't bow," she said after a while. "You don't even ask my title." He looked at her with a faint grin. "Titles don't matter much when you're both trying to stay dry in the rain." She almost laughed. It was the first time anyone had spoken to her like that, not as a princess, but as a person. Over the next few days, she helped him around the cabin. He showed her how to fix broken panels, how to cook simple food, and how to use an old scanner to check for weather changes. At first, she tried to command him as she would any servant. But Elias only raised an eyebrow and went on with his work. Soon she found herself copying his quiet patience at night. They talked by the fire. He told her stories of Earth, the blue oceans, the green mountains, the music of rain on rooftops. His words painted pictures in her mind, so vivid she could almost see them. "Do you miss it?" she asked softly one night. He smiled sadly. "Every day. But missing something doesn't bring it back. You just learn to live with it." She looked down at her hands. "Your people were known for emotion. My people called it weakness." He glanced at her. "Maybe it is. But sometimes weakness keeps you human." She didn't know how to answer that. Days passed into a week. Lyra's wounds healed, and her royal communicator began to blink. Faintly it had caught a signal. Her people were searching for her. She should have been happy. But instead, her heart felt heavy. That night, she sat outside, watching the stars. Elias joined her quietly. "They'll come soon," she said. "My fleet. They'll find me." He nodded. "Good. You'll be safe." "You don't sound glad," she said. He looked at the sky. "I'm happy for you. But I know how your people see mine. When they find me, it won't be friendly." Lyra turned to him. "You saved me. I won't let them hurt you." He chuckled softly. "You don't have to. I'm not afraid. I stopped being afraid a long time ago." The next day, the sound of engines filled the sky. Silver ships appeared above the trees. The Veeler's search fleet had arrived. Elias stood by the door, watching as the ships landed. "Guess this is goodbye," he said quietly. Lyra looked at him, her throat tight. She wanted to thank him, to say something that showed how much he had changed her, but words felt too small. "Elias," she said softly, "you're not what I expected a human to be." He smiled. "We rarely are." The forest lit up with bright light as Velar soldiers surrounded the cabin. Their armor gleamed under the suns. The commander stepped forward and saluted. "Your Highness, we found you at last. Are you harmed?" "I'm fine," she said quickly. "No one is to harm the one who helped me." The commander's gaze moved to Elias. "That creature is human," he said coldly. He should not exist. Lyra's tail flicked sharply. He does. And he saved your princess. Lower your weapon. The commander hesitated, confused by her tone. Elias stayed silent, his hands open. The soldiers lowered their guns slowly. Lyra looked at Elias, her voice trembling. They'll take me back to the capital. You should hide until they leave. He shook his head. No need. Let them see what a human looks like. I've got nothing to hide. The wind blew softly through the clearing. For a moment, their eyes met hers, glowing gold. His calm and steady. In that brief silence, something passed between them. Something neither language nor power could describe. Then the soldiers led her away toward the shuttle. She looked back one last time. Elias stood at the door of his small cabin, the fire still burning inside, as the ship lifted into the air. Lyra pressed her hand to the glass, watching the forest grow smaller beneath her. She didn't feel like a rescued princess. She felt like someone who had just left behind a truth too deep to explain. The sky over E-47 shimmered as the royal fleet lifted off, leaving a storm of dust and broken leaves behind. Inside the main cruiser, Princess Lyra sat quietly near the window. Her golden eyes stayed fixed on the planet shrinking below. Her heart felt heavy, filled with thoughts she couldn't name. She should have been relieved. The mission crew was safe. The Empire had found her alive. The Empress would soon welcome her back. But the image of Elias Trent, the human who saved her, would not leave her mind. The man who spoke gently, who didn't bow, who smiled even when he had nothing. He had become part of her thoughts, like a soft echo she couldn't silence. The soldiers around her whispered among themselves. A human? Impossible. The archives said they died out centuries ago, and maybe he's just an animal that learned words. Each word felt like a knife to her chest. She wanted to defend him, to tell them he was more human than many of her people were, but she stayed silent. Her rank didn't give her freedom to argue. Not yet. When the ship reached the capital world Velen Prime, the sky was bright with floating cities and towers made of glass. The Empire looked perfect from the outside, cold and beautiful, filled with rules and order. But after meeting Elias, it all looked empty. The royal court gathered in the grand hall. The Empress herself, tall and radiant, stood on her throne. Her voice echoed across the hall. My daughter, our stars have guided you back. What happened on E-47? Lyra stepped forward. She bowed her head respectfully. Mother, our ship was struck by meteors. I was rescued. By a human. The hall filled with gasps. Advisors murmured to each other. One laughed nervously. Impossible, Your Highness. Humans perished long ago. I saw him with my own eyes, Lyra said firmly. He lives alone on E-47. His name is Elias Trent. He helped me when no one else could. The Empress frowned. A survivor, perhaps. A remnant. But dangerous? Lyra said quickly. He is not dangerous. He saved me. The council members exchanged looks. To them, humans were a story from history, wild, emotional, violent creatures that brought their own destruction. For a princess to speak in their favor was unthinkable. Enough, the Empress said softly, though her tone carried power. You are tired, my daughter? We will discuss this later. But Lyra couldn't rest. That night, she sat on her balcony, staring at the twin moons of Velen Prime. Her mind returned again and again to Ilias's words. Maybe weakness keeps you human. Those words meant something deeper now. Days passed. The court celebrated her survival with feasts and parades. Yet every time someone toasted her courage, she thought of the quiet man on E-47 who never asked for credit. The sound of cheers felt hollow. Then one morning, she walked into the Royal Council chamber, where scientists and historians debated the human anomaly. Some wanted to send soldiers to capture him for study. Others wanted to destroy the evidence to keep the Empire's story clean. Lyra's voice cut through the noise. You will not harm him. All eyes turned to her. Your Highness, said the science minister, the creature poses an unknown threat. We must understand it. He is not an it, Lyra said sharply. He is a person. He helped me when he could have ignored me. If the Empire destroys someone like that, then maybe we are the real danger." Her words left the room silent. The Empress finally spoke. "You care deeply for this human." Lyra hesitated, then nodded. "Not for him alone, but for what he represents. Compassion, courage, hope. We call humans extinct. But maybe what truly died was our understanding of heart." The Empress looked at her daughter long and hard. "You have changed," she said quietly. Lyra lowered her gaze. "Maybe I learned something we forgot long ago." That evening, the Empress allowed her a single visit to E47. But under strict orders, no contact with the human subject. It was meant to be a surveillance mission to observe, not interact. But Lyra had other plans. The shuttle landed quietly near the same clearing where the crash had once been. The forest looked peaceful again. The wreck of her old ship had been swallowed by vines. Smoke rose faintly from the same small cabin. Elias was alive. He looked older somehow, though it had only been weeks. When he saw her walking toward the cabin, he froze in surprise. "You again?" he said, almost smiling. She smiled too. "Did you think I wouldn't come back?" He shrugged. "Didn't think royalty did return visits. Not here as royalty," she said softly. "I'm here as someone who owes you more than she can repay." He looked at her for a moment, then opened the door. "Come in before the bugs decide to welcome you instead." Inside, everything looked the same. The same tools, the same fire pit, the same calm. Lyra sat near the fire again, feeling the strange comfort she had missed since leaving. "You've been busy," she said, noticing new equipment on his table. He nodded. "Found some old parts from your ship. Fixed my power supply. Guess I should thank your crash for that." They both laughed softly. Then more seriously, she said, "My people are afraid of you." He raised an eyebrow. "Can't say I'm shocked. They were afraid of us even before they pushed us away." "They call you dangerous," she said. He stirred the fire with a stick. "Maybe we were. We built weapons we didn't need, fought wars we couldn't win. But we also built songs, homes, families. We weren't just what the galaxy feared we were, what it lost." His quiet words made her chest ache. "They want to study you," she admitted. "Some want to erase you. I'm trying to stop them." He smiled faintly. "That's a hard fight, Princess." "Not giving up," she said. "I told them you were proof that we're wrong about humans, that we've become too cold." Elias looked at her with gentle eyes. "You can't change an empire overnight," she said softly, "but I can start with one person." They sat in silence, listening to the forest's soft hum. It felt like peace, the kind neither of them had known in years. The next day, Lyra recorded a message to the Royal Council. She described humanity not as extinct, but as an example of resilience. "They are not gone," she said in her speech. "They live in the echoes of kindness, in the courage to care without reward. Elias Trent is proof that humanity's flame still burns." Her message was broadcast across several worlds before the Council could stop it. The Empire reacted with shock, and for the first time in centuries, beings from other species began to ask questions. Who were the humans really? What had they lost by ignoring them? Elias became a name whispered across star systems, the last human, the man who helped an alien princess and changed the course of her empire. When the Empress summoned Lyra again, her tone was firm but not angry. "You broke protocol. You risked our image. And yet," she paused, studying her daughter's face, "perhaps it was necessary." Lyra bowed her head. The galaxy needed to remember that strength without heart is nothing. The Empress sighed softly. "And what do you plan to do with this human?" Lyra met her gaze. "Learn from him, maybe. Let him teach us." Weeks later, Lyra returned to E47, this time not as a secret visitor, but with an official envoy. She brought supplies, books, and tools. The soldiers who once pointed weapons at Elias now helped him build a small outpost beside his cabin. The Velar scientists who came to study him soon found themselves listening, instead listening to stories of Earth, of laughter, of mistakes, and hope. Elias never spoke like a leader or a hero. He just told the truth in his calm voice, and that truth reached farther than any speech could. One evening, after the workers had left, Lyra stood with him outside, watching the twin suns sink into the horizon. The light turned the forest gold. "You changed them," she said quietly. He shook his head. "No, you did. You made them listen." She smiled softly. "Maybe we both did." He looked at her for a long moment. "You remind me of the good ones we lost," he said. "The ones who tried to fix things instead of running from them." Lyra's ears twitched shyly. "And you remind me that hope is not weakness." They stood there in silence as night fell, the stars rising one by one. The wind carried a soft scent of rain and earth. When the first drops fell, Lyra lifted her face to the sky. "Do you ever miss your world?" she asked. "Every day," he said. "But standing here now, I think maybe I've found a little piece of it again."
Oh.
She turned to him. "Maybe that's what humans were meant to do, not conquer, but remind others how to feel." He chuckled. "You talk like a philosopher now, princess," she smiled. "Maybe I learned from one." The rain grew heavier, and they moved inside the cabin. The fire glowed warmly. She removed her royal cloak, now soaked, and hung it near the fire. Elias poured her a cup of the same strong coffee he'd once shared as they sat together. She looked around at the small cabin, the old machines, the quiet comfort. "You could have left this place," she said softly. "You could have gone back to space with us." He shook his head. "I don't belong up there anymore. My place is here, keeping the light burning, like I told you. Then I'll make sure no one ever tries to put it out again." Months later, the Violaire Empire began new program schools, teaching empathy and cooperation. Councils that valued heart alongside logic. Other alien civilizations joined in. Across the stars, the story of the human who surprised the alien princess. It became a legend, a tale of how one human's kindness changed an empire. Lyra often returned to E47, sometimes with scholars, sometimes alone. Each time she arrived, Elias greeted her with the same calm smile and a simple welcome back.